Tonight's program is on cultivating mindfulness to support recovery. It will be presented by Dr. Libby Robinson. Dr. Robinson has practiced mindfulness meditation since 1979 and was trained to teach Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction by Jon Kabat-Zinn. He's the guy who wrote all the books on the stuff. So if you don't know about Jon, you should find Jon too. And his colleagues at the University of Massachusetts Center for Mindfulness. She's taught Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction since 2003. She retired from the University of Michigan, where she was a research assistant professor, carrying out NIH-funded projects on the role of spiritual and religious change in recovery. She also did an NIAAA post-doctoral fellowship at the University of Michigan Addiction Research Center and was on the social work faculty at both Case Western Reserve and the University of Buffalo. Please, ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Dr. Robinson.
Thanks, Jerry. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about mindfulness and what mindfulness is, for starters, and some of the research on mindfulness, but I don't want to get stuck there, so we're not going to spend too much time on that, but believe me, there's a lot of it, and every time you turn around, there's more to learn. And then we'll be doing as many mindfulness exercises as I can squeeze in during our time. And I definitely want this to be very interactive. So if you have a question, raise your hand. Learning mindfulness is all about doing it. So that's one of the reasons why we're going to be doing as much mindfulness as we can tonight, and talking about what was that like? What did you notice? Because it's all about noticing this present moment as it is. Okay, so learning all my gadgets here. What is mindfulness? It's just like all over the place. It's this buzzword, right? This is the definition of Jon Kabat-Zinn. He's kind of the guy who popularized it. He's the guy who kind of who's done a lot of the work in terms of getting mindfulness out into the mainstream. But this is his definition, and all the other definitions out there is some variation on this. Means paying attention in a particular way. That is, on purpose, deliberately paying attention to the present moment and non-judgmentally. And that last part can be really hard. And maybe the first thing we notice is, well, I don't like this muffin, or the tea is cold, or the coffee's weak. You know, we right away jump into making some kind of a judgment about about the present moment. So can we just notice the present moment and notice that there's judging, but not hold on to it, not hold on to anything. Notice this next present moment, because there's always another present moment unfolding. So it's all about training the mind to develop greater awareness of the present moment. Noticing my hand gesture, noticing rocking back and forth, noticing being a little nervous, to develop greater awareness of the present moment, including current physical sensations. Current physical sensations are really useful because they're always in this moment, you know? And we'll do some exercises around that. Any thoughts? But it's very easy to get lost in our thoughts, so we can notice that if it happens. And any emotions, any feelings. Without judging oneself or one's experience, and without holding on to the experience or pushing it away. So there's a lot going on, right, that we're going to be aiming for. It's not a rare or unusual phenomena to experience mindfulness. You know, remember back in February when it was so cold, you walked out the door and it was like, you know, there was that first moment before you got all upset about how cold it was, where it was, you really noticed the feelings on your skin, the wind, maybe you noticed the shoulders hunching, you know, that kind of moment we all have had. Or sitting on a beach, or sitting on the bank of a river and just watching the river, the waves come in. Walking in a park and just noticing the sun shining. The feeling lately, it's been nice, eh? The sun shining, being on your face, just noticing that. That's a moment of mindfulness. So it's not unusual for people to experience mindfulness, What's different is sustained mindfulness, where we can actually kind of stick with being in the present moment. That's harder to do because our thoughts kick in and we start thinking about, well, gee, did I remember to put on sunscreen? Or, oh, I forgot my gloves. And, whatever. The thoughts come up. They come up. So, it's pretty apparent now that sustained mindfulness is associated with a whole bunch of benefits. For us, both mental benefits as well as physical health benefits. This isn't a brand new idea. This didn't come out of Jon Kabat-Zinn's head in the middle of a retreat. What came into his mind was, oh, maybe there's a way to teach this to ordinary people without getting into all the religious aspects of the way in which he was learning it. And when you dig it back into history, the Greeks and Romans talked about this. Marcus Aurelius, one of the Roman emperors, wrote these, I think they're called memoirs, or I'm not sure what he called, but he refers to this idea of being present as being valuable and important. And almost every major world religion has some kind of a thread, some kind of a practice in it around cultivating being more present. And in Catholicism, they're centering prayer, which, unlike some other types of prayer that might be focused on, say, saying a word of God or saying a piece of a prayer over and over and over again, or the rosary, it's just being present, just noticing this present moment. And that's called centering prayer. The Quakers, in Buddhism, the Vipassana tradition is all about cultivating our ability to be present. And then Thoreau, the guy that wrote Walden Pond and all of that, and Ralph Waldo Emerson also talked about that, and that's where I first ran across this idea that being present was a benefit. And I tried to cultivate it, but it didn't work real well. It didn't stick around. It wasn't sustained. I didn't have any techniques. I didn't have any tools. And then most recently, you probably have all heard of Eckhart Tolle, who showed up on the Oprah Winfrey show a couple times, who wrote The Power of Now, and he's written some other books. But he's basically talking about the benefits of being present. And I would use different words, I would use different analogies than he does and different techniques, but that's basically the same thing, okay? Mindfulness is not a religion. You can learn this without becoming a Buddhist or a Catholic or whatever else. It's not about religion. It's a human capacity that we all have. It's not a state of bliss. There have been a number of mindfulness meditation sessions that I've had when I've been scared or sad that have definitely not been blissful. There have been some that were really yummy, where I felt connected to everybody and it was all very lovely. But there were just as many, if not more, where things were difficult. And can we just be with the difficult when it comes up without holding on to it? And it's always interesting when we catch ourselves holding on to what makes us miserable. But just noticing. It's not a trance state. There are forms of meditation that can induce trance states. That's not what we're about with mindfulness. Mindfulness is very much about this present moment. It's very real. It's this, standing here, sitting here, whatever's going on at this moment. So it's not about going into la la land and hanging up on the ceiling or anything like that. Matter of fact, I do not recommend going in that direction. It's not automatic pilot. My dad was a Methodist minister, and he was very skeptical about all this meditation stuff, and he thought it was escapist. And my brother and I had a number of really intense arguments with him, trying to convince him that it wasn't. That it really is about being present and paying attention and not just automatically reacting in the way we usually react when somebody cuts you off on the freeway or when somebody says they're going to do something and they don't. That kind of automatic reaction that we might have. It's not about going there. we may notice that the mind wants to go there, but we don't have to act on it. We can choose. There's a lot more choice when we practice mindfulness. It's also not about emptying the mind or causing the mind to be completely still. Sometimes our minds are very busy, and sometimes our minds are very agitated, and sometimes our minds don't want to let go of something that's holding us, that's plaguing us. I remember being at a retreat, and I couldn't sleep. These are week-long silent retreats. They're pretty intense. It's kind of like jumping in the deep end of the pool. And I couldn't sleep because I kept thinking about somebody in my work life who was driving me nuts. You know, and I felt very put down by her and very offended by her, and I was really stuck. So I just got up, I got dressed, I went into the meditation hall and sat there and meditated for 20, 30 minutes. And it kind of dissolved, it sort of dissipated, and then I was able to go back to my room and go back to sleep. So it's not, and another example of how this is not about an empty mind, Joseph Goldstein, one of the premier teachers of this in the Buddhist Vipassana tradition, was once asked at a conference I was at, do you think the mind is ever still? And he has meditated enormous amounts, right? And he didn't just shoot out an answer. He thought for a minute and he said, no, I don't think it is. It's always looking, it's always commenting, maybe judging, but we don't have to get hooked by it. We can choose whether or not to respond, whether or not to go in that direction. So it's not about shutting the mind up. Sometimes the mind's just going to sit there and go, nya, 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 and we can go, it's okay, relax, hang out. I'm going to go do this other thing. You can just be fretting all day, and that's okay. We don't have to bite when that occurs. It's also not something to harass yourself about, oh, I'm so unmindful. Well, most of us are pretty unmindful. I don't think I know very many people who really are mindful all the time. I suppose if you were, you would be enlightened. But it's about being a little bit more aware, a little bit more mindful than we are now. There's a book out there, one of the better-selling mindfulness books called 10% Happier. So maybe we're 10% more mindful. And that's a lot. That can have a real impact on how we negotiate the world and how we deal with things when they arise. It's not a cure for whatever ails you. It's not going to make your addiction magically disappear. You're still going to have to work on it. It's not going to make your cancer or your heart disease go away or your fibromyalgia. It's still there. But maybe we have a little bit more resources to deal with it. Maybe we can deal with it with a little bit more skill, with a little bit more in a more constructive way than the way we've been dealing with these things. It's not a cure for whatever ails you. As I said, it's not a quick fix. This is something you have to work at. You have to be persistent. You have to practice. And the more you practice, the more available it is to you. So I'm going to teach you some strategies that you can use. And it's not passivity. That's more of my talking to my dad there. So here's some of this. I'm only putting in one slide about the research because there's so much of it. But this will give you a sense of what it's like and what some of the stuff that people have discovered. And this is typically based on an 8-week mindfulness course, like the one Jon Kabat-Zinn developed, or some of the variations that have been developed of it. Reductions in depression, in anxiety, in eating disorders, in stress, and in pain. People's perceptions of pain decreased. John's original program was for people with severe chronic pain, you know, like the roofer who's fallen off one too many roofs. And now he's at home in pain all the time, you know. And so how it doesn't make the pain like magically go away completely, but it's less dominant. There's other things that he's aware of besides the fact that he has pain. And in that process, the pain itself seems to because we're no longer hanging on to it quite as much, it sort of softens and it's less intense. There's also quite a few biological consequences of practicing mindfulness: increased immunological response, like a better reaction by the body to a flu shot, so you build more antibodies. Reduced blood pressure, reduced cortisol. Cortisol is one of the stress hormones, and I found that in a little study I did when I was at the university, as well as other people have done better studies and also documented it. Increased psychological well-being and enhanced cognitive functioning, which is nice for those of us who are getting older who might be worried about things like that. But mindfulness can be very helpful in terms of reducing the loss of cognitive function that can happen as you get older. Fibromyalgia patients improved. Substance use decreased, even when the program isn't specifically geared to substance use. But now there's a couple different specific classes that have been developed and researched on, specifically targeted to helping people reduce substance use, and there's quite a bit of research now showing that. And then one of the things that I think is really interesting is that these changes appear to persist. You take a pill, and once the pill is out of your system, it doesn't help you anymore. But once you've learned mindfulness, it's part of what you've learned. It's a part of how you interact with the world. It's something you've learned. It's there. It's a shift in how you interpret the world. And so we'll very often find reports that these changes appear to persist. It's not something that's just temporary, that comes and that goes away once you stop taking the class. Okay, so it looks like what's happening is that there's a greater, this gets into more like the theory. Why does it work? How can this thing work? It's not a panacea, is it? Well, what we discover is that, and this is based on both brain imaging studies as well as self-report and behavioral studies, people are better able at focusing the attention. It takes practice, right? Body awareness. People are more aware of their physical sensations. And I don't want to say just, more aware of their bodies. More aware of physical sensations is more specific. So being aware of what's going on with our body right now. I'm aware of bouncing my hands, stepping here on the stage. And then it also increases in emotional regulation. And this is one of the things that's most intriguing to those of us who are in the mental health field. One of the things that seems to happen is that we're more open to other interpretations of what's going on. That's called reappraisal. So I walk down the street, I see a friend I know, I wave, I say hi. She doesn't respond. She keeps going. Oh, she hates me. I'm on her shit list. Whatever, Disaster, right? I've lost a friend, and this sort of catastrophizing thing. Well, maybe that's not what's going on. Maybe she just didn't see me. Maybe she's distracted, So there can be a little bit more openness to other interpretations of what is going on, what we're seeing. And another thing that can happen that helps us with emotional regulation is we might be sitting there meditating and we notice that here's a scary thought arises, right? Well, I don't have to get stuck. I can just let it be, let it drift off, and go back to my breath or whatever. And then, there it is again. Okay, just let it go. And pretty soon it stays away, just because I'm not holding on to it. So that's the exposure, extinction, reconsolidation thing, without getting too hairy with you. Also, people's perceptions of themselves changes. And we can speculate later about why that might be the case, but sort of, we sort of interpret ourselves, I'm the kind of person who, blah, 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 blah. We can each fill in the blank there, right? Well, maybe there's a little bit more looseness around that. Maybe that's not quite such a locked-in thing. Maybe we can be other things besides this little narrow version of ourselves that we've got in our heads. And the other thing that's really important is compassion. Developing compassion toward ourselves and toward other people, and deliberately fostering that. And that seems to be very powerful, and it is a really important part of cultivating mindfulness. It's not a magic bullet. It's not a panacea, like I said. It requires patience, it requires practice, and persistence. So we're training the mind, we're creating new neural pathways. They've actually shown that the way our brains work is that we actually have these sort of well-worn neural pathways. There's probably a well-worn neural pathway in your brain around driving and around eating. Think of things that you do a lot. Those are well-worn neural pathways. It's almost like there's a streamlined, oh yeah, okay, the brain goes, oh yeah, we know how to do this, so we're just going to, boom, right? Well, we're creating new neural pathways. And the way that we create new neural pathways is through repetition, is through doing something again and again and again. And after a while, those old neural pathways, particularly if we're not using them, they tend to get a little bit rusty, shall we say. They're not quite as well greased as the others. Think of the path through the woods or through the meadow. The first time you went slogging through that meadow, you looked back, couldn't even tell, right? But if you keep going back and forth across that meadow and that path, sooner or later, there will be a well-worn path. And you can go out west and you can still find the Oregon Trail, where the old wagons that they used, you can still find those trails. So neural pathways, it's really a useful metaphor for thinking about the way our brains work. And a lot of those default neural pathways are very automatic, and they're very much centered around ourselves and our interpretations of where we are in the world and what we're about. So repeatedly cultivating mindfulness and awareness is really important. Just noticing over and over with great patience and with great friendliness toward ourselves and our minds. Oh, Jon Kabat-Zinn likes to talk about, well, really what mindfulness is about is making friends with our minds. It's not just about, oh, God, I'm so upset because my mind keeps going off in this direction. It's like, oh, there you go again. Okay, come on back. You're being nice to your mind. Okay, it's sort of like the little rebellious 2-year-old that's in there. It's not going to help to get all pissed off at it. There's just being kind, being kind. Okay, so now we're getting into the fun part of the evening. I hope it's fun. Ways to cultivate mindfulness. Meditation, and we'll do some of those, but also informally, just being present in ordinary life. Okay? So what a radical idea. I can be mindful just sitting here or driving or brushing my teeth, right? So let me ask you, this is where I'd like to hear from you. What, in terms of physical sensations, let's just look at physical sensations. What physical sensations do you notice right now at this moment?
Back tension.
Pardon me?
Back tension.
Back tension, okay, all right. It's cold, all right. And where do you notice the cold, on your feet or? Yeah, right, okay.
Toothache.
A toothache, yes, those can really grab your attention, right? Yeah. Yeah? Did I see your hand? Okay, someone else? Yeah, in the back.
Hunger.
Yeah, no, that's important. Yeah, that's an important thing to notice. And where do you notice it in the body? I'm going like this because, of course, I'm assuming it's here. It is here? Yeah, right. You're noticing the light?
No, the air coming down from the vent, like on my face.
Yeah, right, noticing that. Anybody notice your butt on the chair? Do you notice your butt on the chair? You're all sitting down, right? That sensation is there. Yeah. Your neck hurts. Yeah. And isn't it interesting how many of these are pains or discomforts? Yeah.
My feet are kind of vibrating. When I put this against the ground, I feel like I want to vibrate.
Yeah, a little vibrating, yeah. Right. But do you just notice the weight of your feet on the floor? You know? You're sitting down, so not all the weight of your body is on the floor. We could all stand up, and then you'd really notice all the weight of your body on your feet. How about any sensations in your hands? We talked about cold, warm. You might notice that. Without looking at your hands, you know whether your fingers are curled or straight, right? And you also may know what your fingers are touching, because fingers are very sensitive. So we can just notice, oh, that's a really smooth surface. Oh, that's a really rough surface. Just noticing, right? Just noticing. And physical sensations are very helpful because they're always in the present moment. We can talk about pains that we've had in the past, but that was in the past, right? It's not going on right now. And our memory of it is not an immediate physical sensation, usually. Very rarely, I think. So physical sensations are a really useful focus for bringing us to the present moment. Imagine, now this is an act of imagination, but I'm sure you can get there, but what do you think the sensations are when we brush our teeth? Pardon me?
Taste, sound.
Taste, sound, touch, right.
And moving.
The moving of the fruit, right. The taste of the toothpaste, right? Pardon me? The noise, right? The noise. So you were hearing, whatever we're hearing. Anything else you might think of? What's just the weight of the toothbrush in your hand, right? We're bending our elbows, we're doing, right? So this hand is busy, it's doing stuff, right? So we might notice that. So there's really a lot to notice when we bring the attention to physical sensation. Was that a comment? Okay, all right. Driving is kind of an interesting informal practice. You, of course, are not going to close your eyes, right? So your eyes are going to be open. But what might you notice when you're driving?
Swerving.
Pardon me?
Swerving.
Swerving? You definitely will notice swerving. Yeah. That'll probably grab your attention. Yeah.
Sitting properly, your posture.
You're sitting. How you're sitting in the, and what do you mean by properly?
Constantly keep your spine straight.
Uh-huh.
Your shoulders back and down.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Just staying, your arms, just keeping them relaxed.
Uh-huh. So these are things that you try to do when you drive. Okay.
To avoid tension.
To avoid tension. Okay. All right. Someone else? What else do you think you might notice?
Noise.
Yeah, noise. You would definitely notice road noise. And if the windows are down, you notice a lot more noise, right?
Just whether or not I'm using tunnel vision or whether I'm actually picking up all the information around me. Because when you get distracted, it's usually tunnel vision.
Right.
So,
Right.
focused
Yeah.
on the road.
Where is my attention, right? Is my attention on what I'm seeing? Is my attention on the other cars, on the rear view mirrors? And you can almost make it a seeing meditation if you want to think of it that way. Because it's very important what we see when we're driving. Yeah.
Not just road noise, but music.
Right, so there might be music going. Okay. What if we turned off the music? Just for grins, as an exercise this is all an act of imagination anyway, since we're not in a car driving, each of us right now. What else?
The lighting.
Pardon me?
The lighting, whether it's sunny or
Oh yeah,
gray.
sure. Is it dark? Yeah. Is it foggy? Is it a snowstorm? It's good to know those things. Right, yes, in the back.
If my phone is ringing.
Pardon me?
If my phone is ringing.
Oh, yes, right, yes. When we might notice that. We've definitely noticed that. What were you going to say?
I was gonna say, I have like these little high school tassels and stuff hanging from my hair, so sometimes I'll hear it sway or
Right,
angle.
you'll notice that,
Yeah.
right, sure. Yeah,
The sound of the road, like the repetitive, like insane.
yeah,
When you keep going over those cracks that are kind of
Right.
spaced
yeah.
evenly through.
Yeah, like South Industrial Boulevard. Right, does that, right, sure. What about the sensations in your foot, your right foot?
When I see a cop, I think I feel that.
Did you hear that? He said, when I see a cop, I notice that. Where is my right foot? How deeply is it pressing? But all the time that we're driving, that right foot is busy either on the gas or on the brake, or maybe it's just hanging in the air waiting to see what the guy in the other lane is going to do, So we can notice that. Where are your hands? There's sensations in your hands, right? Are you doing that? Do? Are you doing this? We can just notice. Just notice. There's a lot to notice when we're driving. And one of the things that can happen as you practice mindfulness is that we start to become aware of how big the present moment is. There's a lot going on in the present moment that we might pay attention to. It's not just, seeing. It's all this other stuff, too, that's going on. Any other thoughts about driving or informal practice? So, I keep polishing this every time I give it, so it's always a little different. So here's some other things, and it's kind of interesting to bring mindfulness to mundane things, ordinary things that we do a lot, partly because we do them a lot, and lots of times when we're eating or when we're washing, we're really not paying attention. So what if we made a point of paying attention every time we brushed our teeth or every time we took a shower? What does it feel like to put your hand under water? You don't even have to have words for it, but just notice it. Just notice it. Is it cold? Is it warm? Is it coming down hard? Is it gentle? That kind of stuff. So eating, actually, typically the first exercise we do in a mindfulness-based stress reduction class is we eat raisins. Everybody gets one raisin. And you're going to look, you look at it, you really use all your senses. You look at it, you feel it, you touch it. And if you hate raisins, you can use something else. There doesn't have to be raisins. And smell it. Sometimes raisins, if you hold it up to your ear like this, it makes a little noise. It's funny. And then putting it in your mouth and just letting it sit there for a bit, seeing what your mouth does, seeing what happens. And then biting into it, seeing what that's like, chewing it, and then swallowing it. So eating becomes this multidimensional experience where there's just all kinds of things going on. 1 minute I'm eating a raisin, and the next minute I'm bolting down my burger. Well, what if we ate the burger in the same way? What if we really paid attention? It makes eating a little bit more time-consuming. So if you're in a big rush, or if you're in a social situation, it's kind of hard to, excuse me a moment while I listen to my French fry and see if it makes a noise. But it's a part, but really bringing attention to noticing, are the French fries all exactly the same color? Or some of them short, or some of them long, or some of them salty, and some of them not. Just noticing. And how different that is than how we ordinarily eat, right? How do we ordinarily eat? Raisins especially, right? Down the hatch, fast. So just paying attention, pulling it out, really paying attention and noticing. Making the bed, folding clothes. I'm doing a lot of folding clothes. I'm getting, you have to be careful if you have OCD tendencies, you don't get too far down this path. And the trick to that is just noticing what's going on. Oh, I'm getting kind of stuck. Just noticing that can help bring you out of that kind of an experience. Okay, so now let's talk about meditation. Meditation, this is a definition from psychologists, as you can probably tell from the language. It's not from a religious tradition. It's not from the Buddhists or the Catholics, or a family of self-regulatory practices that focus on training attention and awareness in order to bring mental processes under greater voluntary control. Oh, attention, awareness. Have I been using those words tonight? Yes. It's all about attention and awareness. And there's a couple different types of meditation. There's concentration forms of meditation where we bring the attention back over and over and over again to the same thing, whether it's a mantra, a phrase. A rosary is an example of a mantra. Or it might be a Hindu mantra that you learned at some workshop that you went to or something like that. Those are the kind that can put you into a trance state if you get really seriously into them, and it's very important to not do that without supervision. We do a little bit of concentration just because it's helpful when we do mindfulness, but we don't stay there. We move pretty quickly into mindfulness of awareness. Where is my attention right now? Is my attention on sitting here? Is my attention on, is she making any sense? Is my attention on what am I going to eat? And how am I going to get home? And what's going to happen next? Just noticing where the attention is. And then there are contemplative practices where we're trying to foster a particular quality, maybe compassion or gratitude or forgiveness or something like that. So let's practice meditation. So what I'm going to do, it's easier for me to lead this if I'm sitting, is I'll lead us through a 5-minute meditation, and then we can talk about it, okay? And I will guide you through it. All the meditations in these mindfulness-based interventions tend to be guided, which is really nice when you're first starting out. It's a little bit less of the deep end of the pool problem that I was describing earlier. Okay. And I'll ring the bell once at the beginning and then 3 times at the end, okay? So one of the things you want to do is you want to sit in a posture that allows your back to be fairly straight and upright. You want to be erect but relaxed. So finding that place where you're neither all slumped over or nor rigid, okay, but finding that place in between, okay? And maybe both feet are on the floor, maybe not, just noticing. And your eyes can be open or closed, it's up to you. If you want to leave them open, and that's perfectly fine, let them rest on a neutral spot in front of you, just because visual stimulation can be very distracting. So beginning by noticing the sensations of sitting here right now at this moment. Maybe the sensations in your feet. Maybe an awareness of your feet being in your shoes and socks. Not thinking about it, but just noticing the sensations themselves. And then shifting the attention up the body to the thighs and buttocks resting on the chair. Noticing any sensations there. Maybe sensations of weight, pressure, warmth, coolness, whatever you're noticing, just noticing. And then shifting the attention to the hands, wherever they are, Perhaps noticing if the hands are warm or cool. Perhaps noticing if the hands are touching each other or they're touching something else. Maybe there's a sense of pressure where if they're resting on your thighs. Just noticing any sensations in the hands. Is what they're touching rough or smooth, heavy or light? Just noticing. And now gently shift the attention to the breath, wherever the breath is most obvious to you. And maybe that's at the abdomen. Maybe it's at the chest. Maybe it's at the nostrils. Just noticing the sensations of the body breathing. That sense of expansion and contraction. Cool air coming in, warm air going out. Paying attention. And noticing if the attention wanders off and starts thinking or planning or wondering, whatever it's doing. Just noticing if that happens. And then gently bring the attention back to the breath. So the breath becomes home base, right? You can always come back to it. It's always there. Because you're always breathing. We can always bring the attention back to this breath. And now this breath. And maybe noticing if the breath is deep or shallow or rough or smooth. Heavy or light. Pleasant or unpleasant. And noticing if the attention wanders off, and bringing the attention gently back, without force, without harshness, without judgment. It seems to be normal for our minds to wander, so we're just trying to gently train the attention to come back to this breath, and now this breath. And if judgment arises, maybe judgment about the mind, or judgment about your breath, or judgment about something else, you can just notice that and let it be. Let it float off. No need to hold on to it. No need to do anything. Just bring the attention back. This is a bit like training a puppy who keeps wanting to wander off and check out this thing and that thing. So we're gently bringing the little puppy back to this breath. And bringing that same attitude of gentleness and friendliness that you would bring to a puppy. Oh yeah, come on back. It's okay. Back to this breath. Back to this inhalation, this exhalation. Not changing the breath in any way, just whatever the body's doing right now, however it's breathing right now, is fine. Just noticing. Paying attention to the body breathing in And breathing out. So, what did you notice as we did that? Yeah.
Areas in my body that were tense from the way I'm sitting.
Yeah.
Prolonged muscles.
Yeah, right. So we might become more aware of the body, of the physical body, in areas of tension or discomfort. Yeah, right. And did the mind want to stay there?
No.
Okay.
Come back to the breath or to what I see when I close my eyes is a lot of different lights. So I would pull to that if I was going too far in one direction and try to bring it back to the breath.
Yeah, yeah. Right. Thanks. Someone else? Yeah.
I started dreaming.
Pleasant dreams, unpleasant dreams? Just ordinary, neutral?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the mind was sort of wandering off into fantasies. And were you able to, you noticed it, were you able to bring the attention back? Okay. All right. Right. Yeah, the mind will do that, things like that. The mind might go off into a bit of song that you heard earlier today, you know? Yeah.
I felt calm.
You felt calm. Yeah. You really noticed.
I had so much going on in my head that it just calmed. And then the kind of, I don't know, for some reason I had like a body vibration.
Right.
Kind of just was almost like releasing everything.
Yeah. That can happen. Someone else? Yeah, over here in the striped shirt.
Noises kept interfering.
Yeah, right. This is not a pristine, isolated environment. So we might become aware of there's the sound of the system running and maybe people outside. Yeah. And then when you noticed that, what did you do?
Tried to come back to the breathing.
Yeah,
But
right.
it was difficult to separate that.
Yeah, right. Sure. Yeah, I mean, our tendency is, what's that sound? Or, or finding it irritating. Oops, am I moving around too much? Okay, yeah.
How is mindfulness different than the yoga practice of actual breathing and thinking about the breath going through different parts of the body, relaxing?
Well, we're not trying to change the breath. If the breath is very shallow, we notice the breath is very shallow. Whereas in yoga is much more about learning to manipulate the breath in different ways. And we're more interested in, well, what's the breath really doing all by itself right now? Without my trying to tinker with it. So it's different in that way. Yeah. Other things people noticed? Yeah.
Time went very fast.
Pardon me?
Time went very fast.
Time went by very fast, right.
And my heart slowed down. And I feel more alive.
Yeah.
Awake.
Great. She said she feels more alive, more awake, and more relaxed. Is that what you said? Okay. Yeah. Yes, Jess.
I'll mention this because several people, when you were talking about sensations, mentioned pain. And I sprained my wrist a couple hours ago.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here with throbbing pain. After 5 minutes of meditation, not only is the pain level less, but I can choose how to react to it. So it puts it in a perspective that is much easier to deal with than when I'm just focused on being in pain.
Right. Yeah. Did you guys in the back hear that? Her experience with working with this, with the pain that she's experiencing from her arm after just 5 minutes of meditation. I saw another hand up. Yeah.
Well, I feel like you were in my head. So anything that
might be good.
To do. Okay, so when you were talking about the breathing thing.
Yeah.
And so I was really focused on my breathing, but I was thinking, I should maybe try to breathe a little deeper. And then you said, don't try to change it. So I just felt like you were I was so focused on what you were saying, but also very relaxed.
Good.
it just was completely like guiding me.
Yeah, right. And that's one of the reasons why a guided meditation is very helpful when you're first getting into this. You know, after a while, you might, just sit there in silence and guide yourself, but you might not want to start there. Yeah. But a lot of people mention feeling more relaxed, and that can happen. Anybody feel less relaxed? That can happen too. Yeah. What was that like?
I think probably the outside noise factor made it a little more so because my awareness of that was heightened. So that I was like, I'm kind of naturally an anxious person. So I was just like, oh, now all these noises are like, I would never have noticed them, but I'm hyper aware of all these noises. Irritating. So I don't know that it was necessarily the meditation so much as it not being a perfect environment for that. So the heightened awareness was more anxiety inducing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So we might notice that we're thinking, or I used to get very anxious about, am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? Whatever you're doing it right. If you noticed what was going on, you were doing it right, And the fact is that we rarely are in a perfect environment. Even at the meditation retreat center that I love to go to, there's a road right out there, and the obstruct comes up, and the people who work there chat while we're being silent and meditating. Shocking. And for the first time I recorded all my guided meditations, I didn't realize this until later, but it was garbage day, right? And so at some point in the middle of the meditation, there's the garbage truck, and there's the dog barking, and that was just part of the mindfulness of the breath meditation in that particular instance,
Isn't that just part of it, though? I mean,
it's just part of it.
It's like, it's the thoughts, it's exterior sounds, it's sensations, it's smells, it's all that stuff, right? And
yeah, right.
We're aligning ourselves with being in the moment and not, dismissing that or letting
Exactly, right. It's almost like the sound or the smells. Let's say someone in your house is cooking something, bacon or something. That's just another part of the present moment. It's just another part of what's going on right. Oh, okay, noticing that, and then coming back to the breath. And it's okay that the mind wanders. That's what the minds do. And so there's no need to judge. There's no need to, I'm a terrible meditator. Let that thought go, just like you let go the distractions of sounds, the distractions of the pain, or whatever else that you noticed was going on in that moment.
Just had a question. If you had any experience working with kids, particularly with autism or somewhere on the spectrum that are already hypersensitive and hyper-aware of those things, if this helps those kind of situations, if mindfulness and meditation practices specifically?
I don't know, but I can link you up with people who do work with kids and who can address that issue. I know that this is helpful with anxiety. I think partly because we don't feel like we have to, we're deliberately letting go of those distractions when they occur. We notice that, I got distracted. Okay, come back. Oh, got distracted again by something else. Come back. Or what can happen is that the same thing keeps pulling us away. Oh, here there's that person at work I got to deal with. Oh, God, they're so aggravating. Let it go. Come back to the breath. There it is again. It's like it's sticky. And so we can just notice that's what's going on. And notice, and every time we notice, part of the noticing is, okay, letting it be and coming back. Not holding on to it, not pushing it away, but I like to use the analogy of we're just opening up the palms of the hand and letting it float off. Down the river. Yeah. Other things people noticed?
It was hurting.
It was hard?
Yeah, my neck was hurting me, so
okay.
I floated off into the pain. Came back. And I just went back off, and then when you said bring it back, I kept having to revisit bringing it back.
Right. So there was a lot of tension around it. Yeah. And one of the qualities that we work on when we're cultivating mindfulness is something called non-striving, which is don't try so hard. You know? So just kind of, oh, there you go again. Okay, come on back, you know. And just being not being hard on yourself because the mind wandered off. Because that's what minds are going to do. You know, it's more important that we noticed. Matter of fact, this gets me right into, I realize I've only been at it for 5 minutes, but meditation isn't bringing me the peace of mind I was promised. Okay? So you can see fret, worry, past, future. Lots of thinking going on. Okay? It's not that there's anything wrong with thinking. We need our minds, we need our brains to think, but we can kind of get stuck in our thinking. So you might have noticed some of these things. We kind of might have noticed getting hooked by thoughts or feelings. We might have noticed pushing away thoughts or feelings. I don't want to hear those sounds. I don't want to think that thought. I don't want my neck to freeze up. So we push it away. And can we just kind of, oh, there you are. Okay, back to the breath. We might notice judgment about ourselves. Oh, I'm so awful at this. Oh, God, I'll never be able to do this. My husband used to say that. I could tell you stories about him. Too bad he's not here. Being curious about thoughts. We might have noticed ourselves becoming kind of, oh, well, what was that thought about? And then we follow that line of thinking. Well, you know, I think that thing came about because, you know, and next thing you know, we're busy explaining to ourselves what our experience is. Just let it go. Just even let that go. We might become aware of how impermanent a lot of what arises in the mind is. You know, it comes up, it goes away. Oh, I thought I was stuck with that for the rest of my life. No, not necessarily. And we really start to notice that a lot of thoughts are just mental events. Thoughts are not necessarily facts, you know. And that's a really useful thing to kind of play with. Oh, well, I had that thought. Is it true? Well, maybe not. You know, like the example of seeing your friend down the street who didn't respond. It's my phone. I'm noticing embarrassment. I'm noticing feeling embarrassed. And sometimes we just notice simple awareness, just awareness. I'm just aware. Oh, that's nice. And now here I am commenting on my awareness and complimenting myself on how aware I am. So we can just notice that there's this chatty Cathy is in our heads, you know. But this was what you brought up, reminded me of this. So this is kind of a schematic for what we're doing when we're meditating with this particular we're focusing on the breath. Aiming your awareness at your chosen focus point, I'm going to notice the sensations of the breath. Notice we're not talking about thinking about the breath. But we do think about the breath. We will think about the breath. It just happens. And we hold the focus, and then we lose our focus. And then we notice that we've lost our focus, right? And then we go back, right? So the only part of this where we are being mindless is that bottom right lose focus part. The minute you noticed, this is a moment of mindfulness, I suppose. Yeah, this moment is a moment of mindfulness, the becoming aware part. Even though that's maybe the point at which you also become aware that you're judging yourself. It's okay. You know, that's part of being a human being, is having a very restless mind. And then going back to your chosen focus point, holding your focus, losing your focus. But the interesting thing is that even though we feel like we're just like on some sort of a gerbil wheel, you know, going around and around, it seems to help. It seems to make a difference. It seems to shift things, just the doing of it. We use the breath. It's there. It's available. It's free. It's always there, right? You know, if you're not breathing, there's something really wrong, right? You're not aware. So don't worry about it. So it's a really handy thing. I mean, you can actually sit there at that awful traffic light at Washington on Carpenter, which goes on for 3 minutes, you know, and just spend those 3 minutes, turn off the radio and just just notice the breath. Keep your eyes open, of course. It's a present moment physical sensation. It's right there, right? And it's going on right at this moment. And we're going to notice this breath. And we're not going to notice the breath that just happened. And we're not going to be worrying about the next breath. We're just noticing this one right now. It's accessible. It connects the mind and the body if you want to get into lovely metaphors and thoughts. And it's fairly neutral. Okay. So any other comments about, yeah?
Well, I noticed that I was only able to breathe from my right nostril, and it's kind of bothering me at first, but I just had to let it go.
Yeah, right, yeah, right. And one of the things that happen that we notice when we meditate is that a lot of thoughts that arise in the mind are unbidden. We didn't ask for the Pizza Hut commercial to come popping into our head, or a situation that we thought we'd resolved, or something like that, right? But it comes up. And who knows why? It doesn't matter why. But that's what happens. And can we just simply notice that and let it be? So not judging the mind just because the Pizza Hut commercial came up, or thoughts about your to-do list. It's okay, yeah, right. You want to remember the bread. It's okay, go back to the breath. Going on from there. I have till 8, till 9, right? Okay, all right. Any other comments about, this is the mindfulness of the breath. This is a really fundamental, basic, important meditation. You can do a lot of it, yeah.
When we're practicing mindfulness, I know there are physical well-being, state of mind that we get into, but what's our objective? Or is it just,
to be more present. To be more present. And then see what happens. If I'm more present, am I better able to handle that person at work who's so aggravating? If I'm more present, am I able to make smarter decisions about substances that I might be tempted to use? So it's all about and combining it with this quality of compassion toward ourselves. I think turns out to be very powerful. This is not a goal-oriented thing where, I've been meditating for this retreat and now I can keep my attention on the breath for 10 seconds. It doesn't work that way. It's really much more about it's the practice of it. That's why I keep using this word practice. It's about the more we practice doing this, the more practice we get at letting go of things, the more practice we get at bringing the attention back, the more practice we get at just noticing where our minds are. Oh my God, there I am again, thinking about this aggravating person at work. Really? Give it up, But just, and the more I can also practice being kind to myself, because that's where my mind is going. Okay. So, speaking of cultivating compassion, let's do a short compassion meditation. Compassion is almost always paired with mindfulness practice. As a matter of fact, Sharon Salzberg, she's on your handouts as one of my favorite meditation teachers, mindfulness teachers. She sees compassion practice as a mindfulness practice. But it's about deliberately cultivating friendliness and kindliness. Friendliness. We're not getting all gooey and I love everybody. Don't worry about that, okay? We just want to bring a quality of friendliness and kindliness toward ourselves and toward other people, okay? So let's do a short one of those. So once again, sitting in your meditation posture. And letting the attention come to the sensations of sitting here. And just noticing the feet on the floor, the buttocks and thighs on the chair, maybe noticing the back against the back of the chair, the hands, the breath. Just bringing the attention to this present moment. And then begin to direct toward yourself care for your own well-being. With each breath, perhaps a phrase like, "May I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. May I live with ease." Again, may I be happy, deeply happy. May I be well. May I be safe. May I live with ease. Sending these wishes to yourself with great friendliness, kindliness, gentleness. You are as deserving of these thoughts as anyone else in this world. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. May I live with ease. With each breath, repeating a phrase, sending these wishes to yourself with great gentleness, kindliness, friendliness. And now bring to mind somebody that you care about a great deal. Maybe a family member or a good friend, a partner, and send them these same wishes. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you live with ease. Again and again, repeating the phrase. Perhaps imagining, remembering what this person looks like. Over and over, sending these wishes to this person. And now imagine sending these same wishes to somebody that you don't know. Maybe the bus driver or the mailman or a clerk at the store that you've seen. Somebody whose story you don't really know. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you live with ease. Over and over, repeating the phrases. Sending these wishes to this person you don't even know. And now imagine sending these same wishes to everybody in this room, including yourself. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you live with ease. Again and again, repeating the phrases with great gentleness, kindliness, friendliness. And it's okay if you feel like it's mostly an effort. It's okay. Just sending these wishes to everyone here. So, what did you notice? That's my favorite question I ask my class. What came up in your experience? Yeah.
What sort of surprised me when you said, think in compassion for someone you hardly know.
Yeah.
It was almost like this menu ran through my head, and I thought of somebody that I just met on Sunday evening, who I didn't know very well, but who I knew needed compassion.
Uh-huh.
But it was just instantly there. I didn't have to search.
Yeah.
Boom.
It just boom, right? Yeah, that can happen. Right. Yeah, that's lovely. Thanks. Yeah.
Well, at the beginning, I found myself saying yes or no to your questions, and then eventually changing it to more like I will or I am. Instead of wondering, am I this, or I can be this, I'm just knowing I am this.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, right. Usually it's phrased as may I, may you, sort of it's as a wish, as an intention, as a hope. But whatever works for you. You can also use other phrases than the ones I used. May I be strong, may I be wise, may I be free of suffering. That's a classic. May I be at peace. Those are all lovely phrases to use too. Yes?
When we did the one for everybody in this room, well, first when we did it for ourselves and you said the word safe, I feel safe, so I didn't really feel like much of that, but when we thought about this room, I thought, the thought came in my head, maybe somebody doesn't feel safe, and it just it had more meaning for me in that context. Of thinking of the people in this room might not be safe.
Right. And people often talk about it being a lot easier to send it to other people than to send it to oneself. And if it is really hard to do that, you might start by sending it to the person that you care about the most. Partly because it's easy, and that's good. You remember the well-worn neural pathways? That's a well-worn neural pathway, so let's use it, right? So let's cultivate that. And then sending it to yourself, maybe standing next to that person. And maybe then just sending it to yourself, standing there. Imagine yourself and sending it to yourself, just as you are. Just as I am. But, it's something to play with, something to just kind of let yourself work with.
Self-compassion really sort of counteracts one of the ongoing mental themes of addiction, which is self-criticism, self-judgment. That, I'm just a worthless shit,
right.
is the sort of thing that goes on sometimes. And you made a comment earlier about thoughts just being mental events and not necessarily facts.
Right.
Because, something, I'm having a thought like, I'm really a worthless individual. And you go, I'm having that thought. I wonder what that means. Rather than that is a fact, I am, you start to
just let it go.
Put it into an examination.
Yeah, and you don't even have to examine it. You can just say, letting it go. Letting it go. We don't have to explain it. We don't have to analyze it. Then that makes this very different than therapy, where we do go digging to find out, why do I feel so bad about myself or something? But just really practicing being kind, being gentle with ourselves. This can be a revolutionary act. This may be something that you've never tried before, and it can be really beneficial in terms of really taking care of yourself. So 3-minute breathing space. All right, we have 10 minutes to do the 3-minute breathing space and a couple slides on that. What does this have to do with addiction and substance use? Okay, so So this is the idea behind the 3-minute breathing space is you can do it while you're sitting there waiting for this traffic light or whatever. And I'll ring the bell just to kind of simplify things, but so beginning by just noticing anything that is going on for you at this moment. Maybe there's restlessness, maybe there's tiredness, maybe there's hunger, maybe there's an awareness of sounds, maybe there's awareness of sitting, and awareness of the breath. We can just notice any physical sensations, any thoughts, any feelings. Maybe there's some trepidation, maybe there's some feelings of sadness or anger. Just noticing, not holding on to any of it, just noticing, and then noticing the next thing. And then the second step is to bring the attention to the breath, and just letting the attention settle gently on the breath, and noticing the body breathing in and breathing out, all by itself. And then expanding the awareness as your third thing, to include any physical sensations that might be going on in your experience right now at this moment. And just noticing this present moment, just as it is. So any comments or observations from the 3-minute breathing space?
Is that really 3 minutes?
It might have been a little less.
This seems fast to me.
It is really, really fast. It's a really fast thing. And don't worry if it's shorter or longer. Oh, I did 5 minutes. It's okay. It's okay. But you can see the structure of it is first we just whatever is going on, we just notice, right? We take a minute to just notice whatever is going on right now. And then we bring the attention into the breath, and we stay there for a bit, and then we broaden the attention out again. So it's kind of like a tree, right? Tree, big tree, branches, everything coming down to the trunk, the breath, and then spreading out again. Okay? So I wanted to be sure that you guys had that as a tool, potential tool. So one of the things that practicing mindfulness can do that's relevant to substance use and getting on top of substance use is this issue of awareness and choice and compassion, and that it allows us to notice a craving before we get caught by it, before it hijacks us and we're running off to meet that inclination. And we might notice fault. When I first got into substance abuse, it was just halt. But now we've got fault. Pain, hunger, anger, loneliness, tiredness. You know, I'm sure they still talk about this at Dawn Farms, right? You know, that these can be triggers. And maybe I notice sooner than I have in the past when one of these is operating. And I go, oh, I should do something about that. And I do, right? So this part of mindfulness is being more aware and then taking better care of ourselves as a consequence of that. And we can also remember this thing I said about reappraisals, looking at things a little bit differently. Not letting somebody piss us off so much that we're going to do something that's self-destructive. But instead stepping back, taking care of ourselves in a more constructive way than we might have in the past. Cultivating compassion toward ourselves is huge. Being kind to yourself, being gentle with yourself. Okay, I relapsed. All right, well, let's try again. You know, the beating yourself up over a relapse is really kind of counterproductive. It happens. Okay, all right, what's next? What's going to happen? What's this moment about? You know, yes, there are feelings of regret. There may be an awareness of what triggered it. But what about this moment? Right now, what's happening? So really coming back to this moment. If we train ourselves to reach for a snack or pick up the phone to text message whenever we feel frightened or bored or angry or sad, this is definitely training. We're training our minds, right? So every time I feel any of those things, I'm reaching for my phone. So the next time we feel uncomfortable, we also tend to do that, you know, because it's become a habit. It's become a well-worn neural pathway. And eventually we've got this deeply ingrained habit. So part of what we're trying to do is break out of this mental prison that these ingrained habits have created. Gently, kindly, without force, without judgment. So let me talk just a little bit about local resources. This is part of your handouts. The handouts mention that there's a bunch of drop-ins around town. There's Thursday night at the Lotus Center at 7:30 to 8:30. There's one in Saline from 11 to 12 on Tuesdays. There's 3 actually on Tuesdays. There's also the Refuge Recovery meetings. Refuge Recovery is a Buddhist-oriented recovery movement started by Noah Levine, who is a recovering addict himself and a Buddhist. Buddhism is, think of Buddhism more as a philosophy, and you don't have to like subscribe to beliefs or, you know, sign your life away or anything. Just go, drop in. It's a lot like, it sounds like a lot like an AA meeting. People do meditation, and people share, and people support each other's recovery. That's really kind of the gist of it.
Where is it?
It's on your handouts. There's a flyer. The last page of your handouts is a Refuge Recovery flyer.
There's some other ones too, and over Crazy Wisdom. They do too there as well.
Yeah, right. There's one, I think Refuge Recovery meets at Crazy Wisdom.
Yeah, it's a new one there.
Yeah, right, yeah. There are local Buddhist groups, which is also on your local resource list. Their meditation periods tend not to be guided, so you might want to go to the drop-ins where there is a guided meditation. So that's something to think about. And there's lots and lots of online stuff at this point, if that's what you want to do. Okay? Any questions, comments? All right.
Thank you very much.
Sure. You're welcome.